Los Angeles, where dreams are made and broken under the shimmering lights of the city. To most, it's a place of excitement and possibility. To Jess, a talented tattoo artist, it had once been a city of hope, a place where her skills were revered, where she had built her business from the ground up. Jess had always used her art to express emotions: pain, joy, loss, love. But now, the art of betrayal was becoming her reality. For a year, Jess had been with Aaron, a man she thought she could trust, the one she thought would be by her side forever. They had dreams together, plans for their future, and even discussed getting matching tattoos to symbolize their love. Jess poured her heart into the relationship. Aaron made her feel special. He was charming, funny, and had a way of making her laugh even on the darkest days. Their relationship was more than just love. It was supposed to be there forever. At least, that's what Jess believed. But one afternoon, as she scrolled through social media between clients, she noticed something. It was a message on Aaron's phone, a notification from a number she didn't recognize. Curious and slightly uneasy, Jess opened the message. Her heart dropped. The words in the message were nothing short of devastating. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again tonight. Let's keep this our little secret." The world seemed to slow down as she read those words again, and then again. The betrayal was written there, clear as day. Aaron had been seeing someone else, and he had been hiding it from her. The words were like a punch to the gut. She had known something was off for a while. He had been distant, evasive, and had been taking more business trips than ever. But seeing this made it all real. Jess couldn't believe it. How could someone who had promised to love her betray her like this? The anger began to rise, but more than anger, there was a sharp sense of heartbreak. She had invested so much of herself into this relationship, and now it was all slipping through her fingers. Aaron had made her believe in him, in them, in a future they would build together, but the truth was that he had never really been committed to her. He had been lying, deceiving her, and playing her for a fool. But Jess wasn't the type to cry over a man who didn't deserve her. No, she wasn't going to sit idly by and let this betrayal fester. She was a tattoo artist after all, and what better way to take revenge than with ink? What could be more fitting than using the very art she had spent years perfecting to mark Aaron forever, just as he had marked her heart with his lies? The idea came to her in an instant, as clear as day. Jess wasn't going to just let Aaron walk away from this. He would wear the consequences of his actions, and they would last forever. A tattoo wasn't just ink on skin. It was a permanent mark, something that couldn't be erased, no matter how much one tried. She smiled to herself as the idea began to take shape in her mind. Her revenge would be both cruel and fitting, and she would be the one to deliver it. She would give him an anniversary surprise, but it wouldn't be the romantic gesture he was expecting. No, this surprise would be far more personal, far more permanent. Jess spent the next few days carefully planning her revenge. She wasn't going to just give Aaron any tattoo. It had to be something bold, something that would humiliate him. It had to be something he could never hide, something he would always have to explain. After all, the worst thing about betrayal wasn't just the lies. It was the way it left you scarred, your trust broken in ways that were never fully healed. And now, Jess was going to make sure Aaron's betrayal left its own permanent mark. When Aaron called her, desperate to make things right, Jess knew it was time. He showed up with flowers and apologies, pleading for her forgiveness. His words were empty, and Jess didn't care to listen. She had already made up her mind. His charm wouldn't work this time. She wasn't interested in reconciliation. She wanted revenge. She wanted him to pay for every lie he had told, for every tear she had shed. "I've got a special surprise for you," Jess said, trying to keep the edge of excitement out of her voice. Aaron, still clueless, smiled at her, eager to make amends. He had no idea what he was about to walk into. The tattoo studio was Jess's sanctuary, a space where she could express herself and create pieces of art. But tonight, it would become the stage for her most satisfying act of revenge. She had already prepared everything. The design was ready, sketched out perfectly. Jess had always been known for her detailed work, her ability to transform raw emotions into intricate designs. And this tattoo would be no different. It would be bold, striking, and impossible to ignore. As she led Aaron to the tattoo chair, he was still smiling, still thinking that this was a step toward making things right. He had no idea what Jess had planned for him. She cleaned his skin, applied the stencil, and prepared the needles. The excitement was almost unbearable. Jess took one last look at Aaron, who was still oblivious, before she began the process of inking his skin. The design was as simple as it was humiliating, bold letters that read, "I cheat." It was going to be a permanent, unmistakable reminder of his betrayal. The words would be there for everyone to see, no matter how much Aaron tried to hide them. Every time he looked at the tattoo, it would be a reminder of what he had done, a punishment he would carry with him forever. The needle buzzed to life, and Jess felt a rush of satisfaction as she started to ink the design into Aaron's skin. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Aaron winced, but Jess could tell he wasn't fully grasping the significance of what was happening. He smiled nervously, trying to make small talk, unaware that his fate was being sealed. But Jess was focused. She worked quickly, with precision, making sure every line was perfect. By the time the tattoo was finished, Aaron would have a mark on his body that would haunt him forever. Jess knew this would be the one thing he would never be able to outrun. As the buzzing of the tattoo machine filled the room, Jess could hardly contain the satisfaction bubbling up inside her. The moment was perfect. The precision of the needle, the slight discomfort Aaron was experiencing, the reality that he was unknowingly setting himself up for a lifetime of regret. Jess's eyes never left the area where the tattoo was being etched. She focused on the words forming beneath the ink, each stroke a silent declaration of the power she had regained. In a way, she felt liberated, free from the weight of Aaron's lies. Every time he looked in a mirror, every time he caught a glimpse of that tattoo, it would serve as a reminder of the trust he had broken and the betrayal he had inflicted. Aaron's flinching and discomfort were almost imperceptible to Jess. She had her eyes on the prize, and nothing could distract her now. As she worked, Aaron kept up a steady stream of chatter, trying to fill the silence with his excuses and empty promises. "You know, Jess, I'm really sorry. I messed up. But we can fix this, right? I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I'm still the guy you fell in love with." His voice was earnest, almost pleading, as he continued to try and repair the damage he had done. But Jess wasn't interested in apologies. She had already forgiven him once before she had found out the truth. And now, she didn't want to hear it. The tattoo was her answer. Each letter, Each line of ink was a response to the pain he had caused her. She had been humiliated, disrespected, and betrayed, and now it was his turn to carry the shame. "You're really going to like it," Jess said with a smile, her voice calm and collected, though inside she felt a rush of power. She worked quickly, knowing that Aaron wouldn't realize what was happening until it was too late. The stencil was still visible on his skin, but soon the ink would completely cover the design. The "I cheat" tattoo would be his punishment, and there was no going back from it. The irony of it all wasn't lost on Jess. Aaron had thought he could escape the consequences of his actions, thinking that his charm and apologies would win him back the love Jess had given him. He had been wrong. She had been the one who controlled the situation. She had always been the one with the power, but it was only now, in the midst of inking his body with this permanent reminder of his transgressions, that she truly felt it. As the tattoo neared completion, Jess paused for a moment to assess her work. The letters were bold, striking, and perfectly placed. There was no mistaking the message. It would never be forgotten, no matter how much Aaron wished he could erase it. Jess stood back, admiring the tattoo, her mind racing with the possibilities. Aaron was going to have to explain this to every person who saw it. The tattoo was a sentence, an irreversible verdict on his actions. Aaron shifted in his chair, still oblivious to the gravity of the situation. He continued to talk, now about how he was going to make things right with Jess, how he had learned from his mistakes. "I know I messed up, but I love you, Jess. I swear, I won't ever hurt you again. You're the only one for me." But Jess could see through the words. They were empty promises. She wasn't interested in his apologies. She was only interested in making sure he would never forget this moment. Finally, the tattoo was done. Jess wiped away the excess ink, taking a step back to admire her work. The design was flawless. The words "I cheat" were bold and striking, a permanent testament to Aaron's actions. It was a cruel act, but in Jess's mind, it was justified. He deserved this reminder, every single day of his life. "All right, all done," Jess said, her voice almost businesslike as she prepared to reveal the tattoo to him. Aaron, still unaware of what had just transpired, stood up, eager to see the result. "Wow, I can't wait to see it," he said, grinning. He walked over to the mirror, the anticipation in his eyes. Jess stood back, waiting for the inevitable moment when Aaron would realize the truth. Aaron turned to face the mirror, and for a moment there was only silence. He stared at the reflection in disbelief, his face slowly turning pale as he finally took in the tattoo on his lower back. The words "I cheat" were unmistakable, bold, and permanent. It took Aaron a moment to process what he was seeing, his hand instinctively reaching to touch the tattoo as if he could somehow make it go away. But it was too late. Jess watched him, her gaze cold and steady as his expression shifted from confusion to anger. "What the hell is this?" Aaron finally exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief and frustration. He spun around to face Jess, his face flushed with rage. "You can't be serious. This is messed up, Jess. This isn't funny. You can't do this to me." Jess remained calm. She had expected this reaction. She had known that Aaron wouldn't be able to handle the humiliation. But she didn't care. The tattoo was the least of his worries now. The humiliation was just beginning. "It's your anniversary surprise, Aaron," Jess said coldly. Her voice was steady, but there was a certain satisfaction in her tone that Aaron could no longer ignore. A permanent reminder of who you really are. A reminder that you cheated. Aaron's face turned bright red as he took in her words. He tried to cover the tattoo with his hands, but there was no hiding it now. No amount of excuses or anger could undo the fact that he had been caught, and that Jess had exacted her revenge. "You're sick," he spat, his voice full of fury. "You can't do this to me." But Jess didn't respond. She had already said everything she needed to say. She had made her point, and Aaron was now left with a permanent reminder of the choices he had made. Aaron stood in front of the mirror, his hands shaking as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. The tattoo was real. There was no denying it. His mind raced, his breath coming in short, shallow bursts. How could he have let this happen? How could he have been so blind? The words, "I cheat," stared back at him in bold, undeniable letters. The shame of it was suffocating. He wanted to wipe it away, to erase it from his body, but there was no magic eraser when it came to tattoos. It was permanent, just like the damage he had caused in their relationship. He turned to Jess, his face contorted with anger and humiliation. "This is insane," he muttered, still in disbelief. "You're crazy, Jess. You think this makes you feel better?" His voice was strained, his ego battered beyond repair. But Jess wasn't looking for validation. She didn't need his acknowledgement. She had already taken her revenge, and she was content. He had played her for a fool for too long, and now he would carry the consequences of his lies. Jess didn't say a word. She stood in silence, letting Aaron stew in his emotions. His outrage, his anger, his desperation, none of it mattered anymore. He had crossed a line, and now he was paying the price. She had given him the ultimate punishment, and he would wear it for the rest of his life. As Aaron continued to shout at her, she didn't flinch. Instead, she simply turned her back and walked toward the door of the tattoo parlor. "You think this is over?" Aaron called after her. "You think you've won?" Jess paused before she opened the door, her back still to him. The anger in his voice only fueled the sense of satisfaction that bubbled within her. She could hear the panic in his words, the desperation to fix what he had broken. But it was too late for apologies. It was too late for him to make things right. Jess had already moved on. She had already found a sense of closure. "It's not about winning, Aaron," she said softly, without looking back. "It's about making sure you never forget the truth." With that, she walked out, the door closing behind her with a soft click. She didn't need to stay and watch him suffer. The tattoo was his punishment, and now he would have to live with it. Every time he caught a glimpse of it in the mirror, every time he tried to hide it, it would remind him of what he had done to her. There was no escaping it. Jess walked out into the cool Los Angeles evening, the city lights twinkling in the distance. As she walked down the street, she felt the weight of the day lifting off her shoulders. The anger that had consumed her for so long was finally gone, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. She had done what needed to be done. Aaron would never hurt her again. For Jess, the tattoo wasn't just a revenge. It was a way of reclaiming her power. It was about taking control of her own narrative. For too long, she had let Aaron's lies define her. Now, she had rewritten the story, and she was the one in charge. As she walked through the streets of Los Angeles, she felt freer than she had in months. She had let go of the pain, the heartbreak, and the fear. Now, she was moving forward, leaving Aaron and his betrayal behind. But what about Aaron? What would he do now that the tattoo had exposed his secrets for the world to see? Jess didn't care. The consequences were his to bear. He would have to live with the tattoo, with the shame of what he had done forever. There was no going back. No amount of regret could change the fact that he had been caught. In the days that followed, Jess continued to work at her studio, her passion for tattooing reignited. She spent her time with people who appreciated her talent, who understood the artistry and significance of each piece she created. She moved on, growing stronger with each passing day. Her past with Aaron faded into the background, becoming nothing more than a chapter in her story, a chapter that had ended with a permanent ink that would forever mark him. And Aaron? Well, he would have to answer for his actions every time someone noticed the tattoo, every time someone asked about it. It would be impossible for him to hide it, no matter how hard he tried. The truth was out there now, etched into his skin, a reminder that sometimes actions speak louder than words. And in this case, Aaron's actions had led to his own public humiliation. Jess's story is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful form of justice is the one we create ourselves. We are not powerless in the face of betrayal. We can choose to rise above the hurt, to reclaim our dignity, and to take control of our own story. Revenge, when done with purpose, can be a way of healing. But most importantly, it is a way of finding strength. If you've ever been hurt by someone you loved, remember that you are not defined by their actions. You have the power to stand up, to take control, and to move forward. Your happiness and your peace of mind are worth fighting for. Just like Jess, you can rewrite your story, and in doing so, find the strength to move on from the past. Take control of your narrative, and never let anyone steal your peace.